What if the most powerful weapon in a war wasn't a gun or a bomb, but a book? What if a single story could help a young girl survive a world falling apart? Today, I want to share with you the unforgettable journey of Liesel, a girl who stole books to feed her soul, who hid stories like treasures, and who learned that words can heal even when the world breaks. This is The Words She Carried, a story from the shadows. A story of courage, of friendship, of the kind of silence that only a voice can break. Why is this story useful for learning English? Listening to stories like this is one of the best ways to improve your English, and here's why. You learn natural sentence structures and vocabulary in context, so you remember them longer. You improve your listening and pronunciation skills just by absorbing how words are spoken. You connect with emotions, characters, and real storytelling, which makes language learning feel like an adventure, not a lesson. You build fluency without pressure just by enjoying the rhythm of language. So, as you listen to Liesel's story, don't worry if you don't understand every single word. Feel the story, absorb the message. Let English enter your ears and your heart. Are you ready to begin? Let's open the first page of a story that was never meant to survive, but did. Because someone remembered. Have you ever seen a child steal a book from fire? Not for glory, not for wealth, but for memory. Let me take you back to a small town draped in snow and soot, where the rooftops wore smoke like shawls, and the silence between air raid sirens taught people more than school books ever could. The girl in our story is called Liesel, not her real name, but close enough to capture her soul. She was just 9 when the sky watched her lose everything. The first time I saw her, she was on a train. She didn't know I was there. I rarely announce myself. I wait, I hover, I collect. But this time was different. Liesel sat beside her mother and little brother, wrapped in a too-thin coat, her hands like pale ghosts in her lap. Her brother coughed once, then never again. The train halted in a nameless field, a quiet burial in the snow. Two men dug with numb hands. Her mother, with eyes too tired for tears, held the boy's small body like a borrowed coat she had to return. They left him there, beneath the frozen ground. That's when Liesel saw it. A book, peeking from the coat of a distracted gravedigger. It fell onto the snow like it didn't belong there, like it wanted to be found. And she took it. A gravedigger's handbook, the first thing she ever owned, the first secret she ever kept. Liesel was soon left in the care of two strangers in a town called Mulking, a quiet German village where war was a shadow creeping closer each day. Her foster parents were nothing like she imagined. Hans Huberman had silver in his hair and kindness in his eyes. He smelled of cigarettes and paint. He played the accordion as if the notes could shield you from fear. Rosa Huberman was loud, rough, and spoke with words sharper than winter wind. She washed clothes for the wealthy and cursed like poetry. But beneath her bark was something rare, fierce, loyal love. At first, Liesel had nightmares every night. She'd wake up screaming, her fists clutching the bed sheets like they were ropes pulling her from drowning. And every night, Hans would come. He'd sit beside her, light a cigarette, and say, "Shall we read?" Slowly, they sounded out the stolen book together, word by broken word. That's how she began to trust the words, not just read them, feel them. That's how she began to steal more. Sometimes, what saves you isn't grand. It's a quiet presence, a hand on your back, and a voice that reads when the night is too loud. Molching was not a place for magic. Its streets were dust, its sky often grey, and its homes leaned slightly forward as if trying to listen for better news. Yet inside one small house on Himmel Street, a girl was falling in love with words. Liesel read the gravedigger's handbook so often, the pages softened like cloth. She couldn't explain it, but each sentence gave her strength like bread for the soul. But hunger isn't always for food. Sometimes it's for meaning, for power, for control in a world that keeps taking. So when the mayor's wife invited Liesel into her grand library, a room with walls that breathed books, something inside Liesel stirred. Awe, desire, hunger, all of it. She ran her fingers over spines as if she could feel their hearts. And then she began to borrow. Silently, secretly, sometimes with permission, sometimes not. But the second book she stole was from Fire. It happened on a day of celebration. The town square was packed. Banners waved like obedient arms. A pile of books stood like a wooden mountain in the center. The children were told the books were dangerous. Unpatriotic, the officials said. Poison for the mind. Liesel watched with hollow eyes as the match was lit. Flames roared like applause. The crowd cheered, but Liesel didn't move. When the fire shrank into embers and the square began to empty, she stepped forward. Heat still shimmered in the air. She saw it, a blackened book, half burnt but still alive. She reached in. It seared her fingers, but she didn't let go. She ran. Behind her, the ashes danced in the wind like ghosts. That night, she tucked the scorched book under her mattress. No one saw her. Except one. The mayor's wife, standing behind a curtain, watching through a cracked window. That night, Rosa grumbled as always, and Hans hummed his sad accordion tunes. But Liesel sat in her room, holding the burnt book like it was a wounded friend. She tried to read it, but the middle pages were gone. Burned away. It didn't matter. What mattered was this. She had taken something the world tried to destroy, and somehow it made her feel braver. That was when she understood. Words had power, and books could be stolen back from death. In a world that burns truth, those who read become rebels, and those who protect stories become warriors. The fire may eat the pages, but not the memory of the words. But fire wasn't the only danger. Soon, Liesel would meet a boy with hair the color of lemons, and a man hiding in the basement who carried a story darker than any book. Is Liesel's journey reminding you of your own? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next part might change how you see courage forever. Before we get to the basement, we must talk about the boy. He ran like the wind, spoke like a dare, and smiled like he didn't know how heavy the world could be. His name was Rudy. Hair the color of squeezed lemons. A laugh that could melt frost. He lived just a few doors down, and from the moment he first saw Liesel, covered in ash and holding a burnt book, he was fascinated. Did it bite you? He teased, pointing to the blisters on her fingers. No, Liesel said. I saved it. That's when he called her the book girl. And that's what he kept calling her. They raced down Himmel Street, barefoot on gravel, throwing snowballs in winter and stealing apples in the fall. But every game they played, Rudy had one request. One kiss. Just one. Liesel always refused, not out of dislike, but because some things are too sacred to give away easily, like stories or forgiveness. But Rudy's brightness was not enough to blind what was coming. One night, Hans Huberman opened the front door slowly, like it might bite. Behind him stood a young man, pale, silent, eyes like hollow wells. His name was Max. He was the son of a man Hans once owed his life to, a Jewish man, now hunted, now hiding. Hans didn't hesitate. He led Max to the basement. That night, Liesel woke to strange whispers. She crept down the stairs and saw him, curled under an old blanket, shaking from cold and fear. She didn't ask questions. She brought him soup. They didn't speak for days, then weeks. But slowly, Through scraps of paper, shared nightmares, and the silence between bombings, a friendship bloomed. Max had stories, not written ones, drawn in pencil on the walls of the basement, about fistfights with death, about trees that cried, about a girl with hair like autumn dirt and eyes full of storm. And one day, he gave her a gift, a book, handmade, drawn on pages painted white with paint from Hans's shop. It was called The Word Shaker. It told the tale of a girl who planted a seed of truth in a forest of lies. Her words grew into a tree so strong that no axe could cut it. Words can build bridges in the darkest places. And the stories we share are more powerful than the bombs we fear. Even when hidden, the truth has roots, and it grows. But safety is borrowed in times of war. Soon, the sirens will wail, and the sky above Himmel Street will learn the language of fire. If Max's story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's honor those who spoke truth when the world demanded silence. Subscribe to follow this journey, because the next part brings both beauty and loss. In the basement, Max kept writing. Every word he scribbled was a rebellion, every sentence a seed of hope. And Liesel? She read them all, again and again. She read until they weren't just Max's words, they were hers too. But outside the safety of their walls, the war crept closer. Food became scarcer, the town grew quieter, and every siren, every shrieking metal cry in the sky meant they had to run. Down to the basement, always the basement. Down there, while bombs fell, Liesel began to read aloud. To her foster parents, to the neighbors who gathered, pale and trembling, even to the walls. She read from old newspapers, from her stolen books, and sometimes she made up stories, just to keep everyone breathing. In those dark moments, it wasn't courage that kept them alive. It was story. Then came the inspection. Soldiers in black coats, cold eyes, sharp questions. They knocked on doors and checked basements. Hans Huberman stood stiff, his hands behind his back, praying with his eyes. The soldiers came close. So close. But they never found Max. Not that day. Still, Hans had painted himself into trouble. A few weeks later, a Jewish prisoner collapsed in the street, and Hans, out of instinct, offered him bread. That one act of kindness changed everything. A soldier whipped Hans in front of the town, hard, ruthless, and someone else saw. Max. That night, Max left. Without a sound, without goodbye. To protect them. He walked into the night alone, carrying nothing but his words. Have you ever had to let go of someone you loved just to protect them? Liesel was shattered. She cried in corners. She searched in dreams. She wrote his name over and over in her stolen notebooks. But war doesn't wait for broken hearts. The bomb came one cold night, no warning, no siren, just the sudden roar of fire in the sky. When the dust cleared, Himmel Street was gone. Gone. The houses, the laughter, the shoes left by doors. Rosa, gone. Hans, gone. Rudy with his lemon hair gone too. Liesel had been in the basement, fallen asleep over one of Max's stories. She was the only one the bombs forgot, the only one left to remember. We cannot choose what the world takes from us, but we can choose what we carry forward. Liesel's journey isn't over. One more reunion, one more loss, and a lifetime to honor the words she carried. Did this chapter move you? Tell me in the comments. Honor Liesel's story with your voice. And subscribe, because in the final part, the past returns and the girl becomes the writer. After the bombing, silence became Liesel's closest friend. She was pulled from the rubble with dust in her lungs and Max's story clutched in her fingers. The world above was gone. Himmel Street, gone. her family gone. She was placed with a kind woman who didn't ask many questions. Liesel didn't talk much either. What was there to say? Her only solace was the book she had started writing. Not someone else's words this time. Her own. She titled it The Words She Carried. She wrote about a girl who learned to read from a foster father with silver hands. About a boy who painted himself black to be like Jesse Owens. About a Jewish man in a basement who gave her a story. And about the night the sky fell. She poured her memories into each page, scratched with pencil on the back of old flyers and ration slips. She didn't care if anyone read it. It was survival. Writing was her way of telling the world, I was here, and so were they. Then, one day, she saw him. In a refugee line. Pale, thin, eyes still deep with shadows. Max. She ran to him. He stared at her as if she were a dream. Then he smiled. They didn't need words. Tears were enough. That moment, in the middle of a broken world, was a miracle without music. A reunion carved from the bones of war. They sat on the curb and spoke about books, about dreams, about those who didn't make it, about how stories survived when people didn't. Years passed. Liesel grew. She worked at a bookshop in a quiet street of Munich. Not many customers. She didn't mind. She liked the silence. It let her listen to the past. She kept her book hidden for years. Then one day, someone found it. An editor. A man with grey eyes and gentle hands. He asked if he could publish it. She said yes, not for fame, for remembrance. And so, the girl who once stole a book from the snow became a woman who gave books to the world. She lived a long life. Married, had children, grandchildren. But every time she heard sirens, even decades later, she paused. And every time she opened a book, she remembered the flames, the friendship, the basement, the boy with lemon hair, and the man with eyes like ash and stories like fire. We are made of the stories we keep and the ones we share. If your story were written in a book, what would you want the world to remember most? If Liesel's journey moved your heart, let her legacy continue through your words. Comment below. What's your story worth telling? And if you believe in the power of stories to change lives, subscribe to this channel. More unforgettable journeys await. Because words can save a soul.